recording that?
No, I am
I
now,
thought you were
though. Hey
recording
guys,
that.
this is Corey with the Showdown Battle League, and we have Brian, Dennis, Jack, and Jarrett here, and we're going to get started and talk about some teams. First up, we got Brian with the Boston Braylooms. Brian, tell us about what you drafted and why you drafted it. All right, Brian, don't get too excited here.
You were supposed to wild out.
So I picked out a bunch of I picked the Fire Water Grass Core, and then I picked the Fairy Steel Dragon Core, and then I picked a bunch of random Pokemon that would put down hazards, and then I called it a day. And then I picked Zatu. And then I picked Jumpla. Yeah, that was the story of my draft.
You fully picked Jump Up before Zatu.
It doesn't matter. Okay? This is like I should have picked them in that order, considering fucking Jumpla.
So I think one of the most impactful picks that you chose was probably Mega Sharpedo. We got a huge buff this season because it doesn't have to Mega Turn 1 anymore. So I think that's going to be a pretty dangerous pick and something people are going to have to watch out for. And now your Z Crystal holders are Heatran and Heracross, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So basically, Heatran is really good with Z moves because it takes out, like, it has coverage to take out a lot of the fire resists with its Z move options. I'm not going to talk too much about it because I don't want to give away too much. But yeah, it has a lot of tools to make its skill set work out a lot better with a Z move. And then Heracross, on the other hand, is just really strong. So you just slap a Z move on it and it just hits things really hard. And you just pray you can get as many kills as possible with it. And those are the goals in my Z-Mons pretty much. Also, just to touch on the Mega Sharpedo as well, it also got Psychic Fangs in this generation, so it's also got a lot of tools to deal with, like a lot of decent coverage to hit a lot of different things. So it's really, really strong, and I think it's gonna work out quite nicely for me.
So what do you guys think is going to be the most threatening Pokemon on Brian's team this season?
Zatu. Every second.
Tang God.
Koji Kiss.
I think that Keldeo is going to be interesting to see. It did not get drafted last season, but Brian did really well with it. Was that season 2, Brian?
Yeah, that was season 2. I just really liked using it. I had a lot of fun with it, just firing off random moves, and it worked out nicely for me, so I figured I'd try my hand at it again.
Yeah, I think Heatran, Tangrowth, and Keldeo is a pretty deadly combo. So I think that's going to be definitely an interesting team to see. As far as a 1 through 10 ranking, what do you guys want to give Brian? I'm going to give Brian an 8. So that's my choice. What do you guys got?
Come on, guys, I can't make myself.
I'll give him a 7.5.
I'll go
8.5.
Yeah, I'll go 8.
Okay, so it looks like 8 is the average here. So we'll give him an 8 and move on. Next we got Frank. He drafted Weavile, Infernape, Blissey, Empoleon, Kofagrigus, Salamence, Mismagius, Chesnaught, Rotomes, Pinsir, and Mega Gardevoir. I like Frank's draft. I think he's got a good balance of power and bulk. A couple of mons that I really like using, mainly Mismagius, is one of my favorites. Overall, I think he drafted pretty balanced and pretty well. What do you guys think on his? You guys are very, very talkative tonight.
I think I mostly like his draft, like, overall, but I think the weird double ghost thing he's got going on is a little weird. I think it could be fine since they do completely different things, but Rodriguez and Mismagius just seems a little out of place for me. But I think the rest of it is pretty good and has some sleeper picks like Pinsir that could maybe come through for him a couple times.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think his low tier picks are kind of like wild cards because Pinsir could be cool, like Moxie, maybe Scarf, but like I don't think anyone's ever drafted it in like 4 whole seasons, so that'll be interesting. Same thing with Rotom Spin. It's been used a couple of times, but no one's really used it like super well. It's kind of just been there and then never brought. I guess I like a lot of his high tier picks, like Weavile and Fernape is super good, and he used Blissey pretty well, which is also nice because not a lot of his walls have reliable recovery. So I think outside of, I guess, like Chestnut and like maybe bulky Salamence, I also think Salamance's gonna be really good with Z Crystal. So I think it's a pretty solid draft overall. I like it slightly better than his one from last season.
Yeah, I think Salamence is one of the best Z Crystal holders like in the game right now. It's just firing off like Supersonic Sky Strike and stuff like that. It just does ridiculous damage, and they can get Moxie boosts, or it can just have a lot of decent coverage because it actually has a really good move pool. And I also think it'll be really interesting to see how he uses these lower tier picks like the Miss Magus and Gordon Spin, as you mentioned, because I'm not 100% sure yet what they add in terms of to his tools kit as a team in general, but it'll be interesting to see how he uses them.
Yeah, I think really his tier 1 picks are potentially some of the best that were drafted as an offensive threat. It looks like, just from what he's picked though, other than maybe Blissey, he's really going to have to play a little more on the offensive side, so he could potentially get worn down by a more bulky team. So that's something he's going to have to watch for. I'm going to give Frank an 8.5 just because he's got a lot of offensive pressure. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'd go 8 as well. I think it could be better if he uses low tier picks well, but my concern is it's kind of like one of those teams that those like lower tier picks don't get used, and it kind of becomes predictable after like the first few weeks. So I'll just give him an 8.
Like,
I'll also go 8.
I really like his offensive core. I'm going to go 8.5.
Yeah, I really think like his offense core between Weavile, Mega Gardevoir, and Fernape is like really, really strong, and the Salamence also adds to that a lot. So I think that offensive presence will really carry through if he plays it right, and it'll be a good team. So I'm going to go with 8.5 also.
Looks like he's getting an 8.5. And next up, we've got Carlos, and as usual, Carlos drafted a really fat team. I think that's pretty much what we all expected from him. But that aside, it's a really looks like a really threatening team. He's got Tapu Bulu, Zygarde, Volcanion, Buzzwole, Kyurem, Mandibuzz, Registeel, Rhyperior, Poliwrath, Spiritomb, and Mega Audino. I really like all of those picks except for Mega Audino. I don't really like that Pokemon at all. What do you guys think on his team?
This is probably my favorite draft overall, with the only problem really just being speed. Like, he doesn't have anything above base 95, I believe. And that's the only problem I can see as of now with this team. Really like it.
Yeah, and that seems to be kind of a common theme for Carlos. He typically goes slow and fat. But, for a team like Frank to go up against a team like Carlos, it's going to be hard for Frank to break him down, to be honest. And I think Carlos will know that, and he'll kind of be able to whittle him down. And most of the offensive teams, Carlos is going to have, I think, an advantage, depending on how he plays. So what do you guys think as far as his best pick? I'm going to go with probably either Bulu or Zygarde as my favorite pick he has.
I'm going with a sleeper. I'm saying Mandibuzz because I think Mandibuzz is a ridiculously stupid Pokemon, and it just doesn't ever die, and I hate it.
Okay. Anyone else?
I really want to see.
Zygarde.
Yeah, Zygarde's really good. I want to see Volcanion be used because I know it was drafted last season, but it didn't really do much as far as I remember. But I think it's like super powerful, and it's got cool mixed like physical options too. So I want to see that thing like really be like top 10 kills. But that would probably be like the sleeper, I guess, high tier pick I'd see from him.
Yeah, I think it has a potential. I just don't know if it's fast enough to really make the top of the kill list. So ranking wise, I'm going to give him probably an 8.5 again. He's kind of the opposite of Frank.
I'm on the other hand, I'm going to give him an 8 because I feel like he doesn't have a lot of offensive initiative just because of the lack of speed, like Jared talked about a little earlier. And so that takes a lot of the pressure. Like, that means he has a lot less pressure on opposing teams compared to like a lot of the other options that people have in terms of faster Pokemon that can get a lot of kills. So that's like one weakness I see. So I'm going to go with an 8.
I'm going to give him a 9.5. The only problem being, again, the speed. But since he has like speed boosting options with Zygarde, with Dragon Dance, and Poliwrath with Swift Swim, I think it can be mended in a way. Definitely don't think it's perfect, but it's a really good team.
Yeah, I'd go 8 as well. I think it's really bulky. I like it a lot. But yeah, I think speed's going to be an issue and a bit of a fairy ground weakness combo. It hits a lot of his team super effectively. And although I know Poliwrath destroyed me in the playoffs last season, but I'm still surprised he didn't go like Kyurem as like a Z captain. But I'll curious to see how many more Poliwrath sweeps he gets with now that it's his Z option.
Convince him to do that.
I think now the problem is, though, that he's used it. We've seen what he can do with it. People are going to be expecting a little more out of it. So he's going to lose that surprise factor that he had before with it. Also, I think there's a little bit of a emotional attachment to it. So it may not have been his best choice for Z Captain, but we'll see. So it looks like he's getting an 8.5 on an average. And we will move over to Suko. He's got Mega Venusaur, Crawdaunt, Chandelure, Hitmontop, Scolipede, Slowbro, Delmise, Bronzong, Golem, Ursaring, and Silvally. This one I'm a little unsure on. It seems like it's kind of all over the place. I like Mega Venusaur, and obviously I like Scolipede. It's one of my favorites. But it just, he seems like he's got a lot going on with this team. And I'm not really sure I like the Silvally pick. I don't think that's that great of a Pokemon, but we'll see if he can prove me wrong.
I think Silvally is the fine, like later on in the draft tier 1 pick, but I really don't like the fact that he put a Z move on it because I just think Scolipede is also like a really, really strong Z move user, and it's also like gains a lot from having a Z move on it. So if you had put it on that, I thought it would have been a good draft. And also, Silvally doesn't really get to use the Z moves as much because if it wants to change its typing and stuff like that, which is really its strength, is that in the draft format at least, is it doesn't really get to do that if it's holding a Z. So that's going to hold it back a lot in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't like the overall synergy of his team. I don't know, like I guess in the later round picks he kind of like got some good flying resists for Mega Venusaur, but I feel like he didn't build around it in the best way possible. He has a ton of type overlap, like 2 psychic types, 2 grass types, 2 ghost types, and I feel that's gonna really hurt him week by week because he has a lot of common weaknesses. And I guess I'm also a bit unsure about a few picks, mainly just Golem and Ursaring is cool actually, but I'm not really sure about Golem. I don't know, it's a whole ton. And Delmise is okay. I don't like Delmise as a Z captain, and I really dislike Silvally as a Z captain. I don't think it's going to do anything, which really sucks because I think like it's going to be using plates half the time. That's the only way it's going to actually be good if you're using plates in good matchups. But like with the Z options, I don't really know if it's going to do much at all. So I feel like, I don't know, this team's kind of a mixed bag of like some good Pokemon, because like obviously Mega Venusaur, Slowbro is a good core, Crawdon's like really good, but as a whole, I think it's one of the weakest drafts overall.
Yeah, I agree. I think really Silvally moved up to tier 1 mainly because of the plates. And I think that without being able to use the plates, he basically has a, was it a tier 3 or something like that, as his Z captain and as one of his tier 1 slots. So I don't think that was a good Z captain pick. It's going to give him a little bit more flexibility, but he really needs the plates in order to do what Silvally is meant to do, and the reason why it's a tier 1.
Hold up. Can you hold? Do you have to hold a Z stone every game?
No, but if he wants to use the Z move, he's gonna have to withgo or not have a plate
Right.
on.
Okay. So he still has the access to the memories and stuff like that, but yeah, he really just kind of wasted his Z move user on it. Is my opinion. It's not really like the Silvally is held back. It's like his team as a whole is held back because he has better Z move options, in my opinion.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give him a 6. What do you guys want to give him?
I'll go with a 6.5 because I think he has a lot of really, really solid Pokemon, but it just lacks a lot of focus, in my opinion.
If this was an earlier season, I might say 6, because like like I guess compared to some of what we called like a weak team in like season 1 or 2, this is still like okay. But compared to all the other teams I've seen so far, honestly, this team is just way lower for me. I'm gonna go with a 4.
Yeah, I'm gonna try not to be as lenient as I was last season with the rankings or ratings. I'm gonna give him a 3.
Okay, we got some pretty low ratings there. So it sounds like we'll go with a 4.5 is about average for him. Now you do have to realize this is the first team that he's gotten to draft with us, so that that is factoring in a little bit. But we'll go ahead and move on to Jack's team. He has Kieran Black, Skarmory, Sylveon, Tentacruel, Crocodile, Galvantula, Shaman, Meloetta, Blaziken, Dusclops, and Mega Gallade. What do you guys think on this one?
I really like the decision that Jack made to load the middle of his draft with like a lot of tier 3s that are really like solid, as opposed to picking 3 tier 1s and going pretty standard in terms of his draft. I think loading the middle of your draft gives you a lot more options in terms of prepping for games, and I think that'll really be helpful for him in terms of preparing for matches.
Yeah, I agree. I think the only one I'm unsure of is Mega Gallade, and that's mainly just because I'm not familiar with that. I don't think anybody's drafted that yet with us. And Blaziken is not Speed Boost, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So it's still a pretty solid mon. Definitely not as good as it could be, but I would say it's still a pretty good tier 4. Overall, I think it's a pretty solid draft. It's a pretty balanced team overall, so I think that's good. It doesn't really lean heavily offensive or heavily defensive, and that depending on his matchup could be good, could be bad. So Jack, what was your idea when you were drafting this team?
Yeah, so I guess what Brian said was pretty much my idea. Like, I didn't want to be one of those teams that has like a lot of tier 1s, but then I have a bunch of garbage tier 5s that like I'm not gonna ever bring. I feel like everything on my team, especially because I only have 1 tier 5, is going to be viable week to week, which is super nice. And I think all the tier 3s I got are pretty good value. I just figured go for a good Fairy Dragon Steel Core right off the bat, then get like good value picks. And I really emphasize like hazard stacking. So I've got every single hazard available, which and a spin blocker, a rapid spinner, and a good defogger. So I think things like Blaziken under webs is going to be like really nice because it really patches up its one issue being speed, and then its coverage and really good offenses are going to show way more. Same thing with stuff like Kieran Black and all that. And I'm really excited to also try Mega Glade because I think it's in a tier 2. I think it's slightly more value than some other megas, and I really like using offensive stuff, kind of like low punny in season 3. Where I think Glade does a similar thing where it's like decently fast, not as fast, but it's got like good offenses, good coverage, and support move pool, and it can be like a really good late game cleaner.
Okay. Now, what do you guys think? What is your favorite pick on Jack's team? I think I'm gonna have to go. I really like Meloetta. I think it's a good pick. It's pretty versatile on what it does, and Josh showed in the first couple of seasons that it's really not something to overlook.
I'm gonna go with Crocodile because I think it's one of those like really fantastic offensive ground types that's really hard to deal with. Just because ground is actually just such a fantastic typing for just in general, because it does like Earthquake is a really good move, and so you can get a lot of mileage out of the ground types.
Okay. Now, what do you guys want to give his team? I'm gonna give him a probably an 8.5.
I'm gonna go with an 8. Oh, you go first.
I'll give him a 9.
Okay, I'm gonna go with an 8 just because I don't like Tentacruel that much as a spinner, and I also think Galvantula has a little bit of weaknesses. But other than that, it's a really like well thought out draft, especially like with the red score, like Jack was talking about earlier. I think it really complements the things well, but I just don't like Tentacruel that much. That's all. I don't know.
Okay. So we'll give him an 8.5 as an average, and we will move on to Jarrett. He's got Mega Lopunny, which is one of my favorite megas. Thunderous T, which he used really well last season. Scizor, Melodic. He had Como, and then he dropped it for Noivern. Incineroar, Decidueye, had Mesprit, which he dropped for Uxie. Aromatisse, Rhydon, and Garbodor. I really like his tier 1s. I think potentially some of the best tier 1 picks that that we've seen. They're just really good. Overall, very good draft. I don't really care for Garbodor, but it's not a bad Pokemon, and especially for a tier 5, it's pretty good. Not really sure what Decidueye can do. I know Joe used it to some success last season, but it'll be interesting to really see it used this time. And overall, I think it's a pretty solid draft that does lean a little bit more on the offensive side. What are your guys' favorite picks on this team?
I really like Mega Lopunny. It's super good in this format because they can clean up teams really well late game. And he used Thunderous Steed amazingly last season, so I think that's going to continue to shine this season because it's just a really solid, like a good speed tier and really good offensive stats. And yeah, I really like pretty much everything on this team. I'm really sad he dropped Como O because I think that thing's super cool, but yeah. And I guess same thing for Mesprit. I like really both of those picks, but Noivern will be cool as Z Captain. I think maybe like Supersonic Sky Strikes, because its main only flying stabs Hurricane. I think that could be pretty cool. And yeah, I really also like Melodic. I forget if I mentioned that because it's an amazing wall in this format. And Scissor is also pretty good. I found I used Choice Bandit a lot and didn't really get creative with it, so I'm curious to see if Jarrett uses like cool sets of it week by week. Overall, I really like this team. I guess not too many. Yeah, like it leans a lot towards the offensive side. Not all of his walls, like I said, super reliable recovery, but maybe Aromatisse with Wish Passing can help deal with that. So I think he will be able to do pretty well with it.
Yeah, I just like it because it's really bulky, but it's also not ever super passive because a lot of the Pokemon on his team have a lot of options to deal damage and not just sit there like a giant sponge. So that'll be really good for him. I think it'll work out quite nicely, and it'll be also interesting to see how he uses the Decidueye and a lot of the other offensive picks, and I'm just interested to see what he does with those.
Yep, so I'm going to give, I think I'm going to give him an 8. What are your guys' thoughts?
I would go 8 as well. I think it's a really solid team. Nothing's like super crazy standout, but no pick on this that I would question. I think everything is going to be used, and everything's going to be used pretty well overall.
Brian, what do you want to give him?
I'm gonna go with an 8.5. I think, because I think that just there's a little bit it could be improved on. I mean, just because he also used up those free agency picks really early on to make pretty limited changes. I don't know. I just think he can make it pretty sorry, what's that?
I'm going to jump on what Brian was saying. I see why he did it, but I think that's going to limit him for the rest of the season to have 2 of those free agencies gone already. So that's just my thought on that. Jared, what was your thought process on that free agency change?
Basically, I definitely think I needed more speed. I think a lot of the main offensive threats I've got get outsped by a lot of things. Just I wasn't really happy with the speed tiers overall, and thinking that Como was my Zmon and everything was supposed to be super offensive and whatever, I thought I could get something faster, maybe something with better coverage and everything. And Noivern kind of fit that. And I got Uxie mainly just because I wanted to get it originally, but with my plan, draft plan, I wasn't going to be able to get it. But then Rhyperior got taken from me, so kind of opened up the slot for Uxie, so I ended up getting it just because.
Okay, so I kind of realized what I was missing a little bit is I don't really think that I think having a high tier ground type would have been something that would have been really good for him, just because it grounds the core of Thunderous Chi and Scizor and Mega Lopunny. It adds a lot to those sort of things, and I didn't think Rhydon was a solid enough pick to complement that, but I still think it's a really good draft overall, so I'm going to go with 8.5. Yeah, there we go.
Okay, so it looks like, Jack, you gave him an 8 or an 8.5?
I just went with 8.
Okay, this looks like we'll go with 8 total. Now, next up we have Cody. He has Tapu Koku, Coco, Tyranitar, Excadrill, Umbreon, Megaseptile, Cresselia, Sock, Alomomola, Frostlass, Magmortar, and Vivillon. This team, I think, is interesting. It looks like he's going for a ground team, at least part of it. So I'm not really sure if that was his plan or what there. But Tapu Koko is really good. Tyranitar and Excadrill are both good on their own, and especially they're going to have some good synergy together. Not really sure I like Frostlass. I'm not really sure what Vivillon's going to do, especially as a Z-move holder. But overall, not a terrible draft, but not one of the best in my opinion. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
I'm gonna disagree with you. I actually really like Frostlass, and I was thinking of picking it up, especially because it got demoted to Tier 4 recently. It's a really solid spiker with a very nice speed tier, and it has like pretty decent utility in Taunt, T-Wave, and like also just Destiny Bond, so it can be a little bit of a pain to deal with, and it can get down a fair number of spikes for and that's just its job. It's not the best, but it's also not the worst, and it does a pretty good job of doing what it's trying to do.
Jack and Jarrett, what are your guys' thoughts on this?
I really like the the offensive take on his team. It's got a lot of cool stuff. I don't really think has anyone even tried to actually use sand in our league. I can't actually recall if anyone has at any point. So I'm trying to remember. So this might be, unless I'm forgetting someone, this might be one of the first times someone's actually. Oh wait, no. Jabin, I think in season 3, which I don't like. I'm really curious to see how he uses it because I feel like it's really good on paper, but the two then have some common weaknesses, and maybe Excadrill doesn't do as much, but that should be cool. And like Tapu Koko, Excadrill, and Megaseptile as like a Fairy Dragon Steel Core is super interesting. I'm just kind of curious to see how that does. And yeah, I really like Frostlash because offensive ice types are super good in this format, and I think Megaseptile could be really good. I think we should have better like coverage moves and stuff, but it's going to be a cool hit and run kind of late game cleaner. I guess this team, overall is kind of a wild card because I think there are a few picks I'm curious to see how he uses, stuff like Magmortar and Sock. And one big concern I have for his team is some of his walls, being Umbreon, Cresselia, and Aloe, are all super, super passive. Like, none of them could reliably break subs, depending on what Pokemon they're up against. I think he's got to be very, very careful, because I think, especially last season, we've shown that people have adapted to playing around that, where you can't just bring a bunch of, like, fat Pokemon and just sit in front of a team. Like, people are going to find ways to set up on them and take advantage of them. And I feel like if he tries to rely on those three as to just take hits, he might end up losing a game, like setup sweepers or like a fast stall breaker or something like that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that point. I'm also just going to go back to the Frostlass point because I talked about spikes and I didn't really explain why they were good. This team actually does really well with entry hazards because things like fast threats like Excadrill, Undersand, Tapu Koko, and the Megaseptile especially, they really appreciate those like spike sort of things because it lets them pick up kills that they wouldn't normally be able to pick off just because they trade off power for speed a little bit. So getting things like spikes and rocks down reliably is like really good for those sort of Pokemon.
So what are you guys going to give Cody? I think I'm gonna go ahead and give him a 7.
I'm going to go with a 7.5. I talked about what I really liked about his offensive core, especially with the Frostlass and other entry hazards that he has, like Stealth Rocks on both Excadrill and Tyranitar. However, like Jack mentioned, the passive defensive core is going to be a little bit of a problem, and it also doesn't synergize perfectly well with his offensive presence. So we'll have to see how he manages that, and it'll be an interesting team to watch.
I think I'm going to give 7.5. I like the team. I don't think it's amazing, but I'm really curious to see, especially as low tiers, what they can do, like Vivian being the Zmon and everything. Really interested to see if he can use those super well.
Yeah, I'd go 7 as well. I think it has potential to be higher depending on how he uses certain things. I think I've given 8 to a lot of prior teams, which I think look a bit more consistent. I'm a bit more confident that they'll do well. I think this team could do really well. It just, there are a few issues with it, and there's a lot of, I guess, like question marks for some like parts. But I think it could do well. One of the teams I'm actually most excited to see in action.
Okay, so we'll give him a 7. And we will move on to Hans. He's got, for the first time in the league, Mega Mawile, which may just be a terrible choice on our end, but we'll see. He's got Victini as one of his Z captains. He's got Zapdos, Greninja, Tornadus Eye, Snorlax, Vaporeon, Hitmonchan, Gourgeist, Drampa, and Aerodactyl. I think this is potentially my favorite draft. I think it's a really solid team. He doesn't have a whole lot of defensive or offensive weaknesses, really. I think Victini is a solid choice for a Z captain, and Snorlax is too. Gonna be kind of cool to see Drampa, or Drampa, however you want to say that name, being used. I don't know if it was used last season, and if it wasn't used very much. Nothing really on this team looks really weak to me. You know, I think every Pokemon's going to be used at least once. And so yeah, I think this is potentially my favorite the entire draft. What do you guys think?
It's not my favorite, but I definitely think it is the best draft in the season. Just Mega Mawile and Victini alone, just those two, is just ridiculous. Paired with Zapdos Greninja, he just has so many offensive threats that can just break down teams so easily.
Jack and Brian, what do you guys think on this one?
Yeah, I've been looking through this team. I really like it. It's got a lot of really cool picks. A few things I've used in the past on different teams, and a lot of I mean, at first I was gonna say that I didn't care for the synergy of the team, but then the more I look at it, the more I realize it actually does have a decent amount of synergy, and I think everything's gonna gel together pretty well. He's got good options for bulk. He has some ice weaknesses, but then he also has a ton of ice resists, and I think offensively he's got a lot of cool stuff. As I think people say, Mega Mawile Victini alone is gonna put a lot of pressure on teams. But also, Greninja, Zapdos, I think, can definitely be used offensively very well. Snorlax as a Z captain, I think, could be super cool. And also Drampa, I was kind of messing around with the idea of getting a second dragon type later in the draft, and it was definitely on my radar because it's slow, but it's got a really cool special attack stats and a lot of good coverage options. It'd be cool if he drafted a Trick Room setter. I guess Victini is kind of one to pair with that, because that could be cool. And yeah, overall, I just like this team pretty well. I think he's got a lot of options, both offensively and defensively.
What I really like about this team is that a lot of his early on picks have can respond to a lot of the things that threaten Mega Mawile, like Zapdos for the ground uses, Victini and Greninja and Vaporeon and stuff like that for fire, for the fire weakness. And the other thing is the 4 picks right after his Mega Mawile all have access to U-turn or Volt Switch, or both if you're Zapdos. And that's really, really good because Mega Mawile really appreciates coming in on those switches and then being able to punish those things. So he has a lot of support for it, and he also has a lot of opportunities to get it in. So I think it's going to be a really, really solid team and a very threatening one to face.
So I'm gonna give Hans a 9.5. What do you guys want to give him?
I'm gonna go with a 9.5 as well. Yeah.
I'm gonna go 10.
Jeez, I was just gonna go 8.5 because I like it, but I don't. I mean, I want to give it a 9.5 or a 10, but I don't know. I still think it's good. I'll go 8.5.
I think just from looking on paper, if I was playing this season, this is probably the team that I would least want to face.
I'll go against him next week.
Come on, man. I'm always the best.
We're gonna see how bad Jarrett's gonna lose next week then.
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll give him.
Jared had a great time his first week too.
Yeah, he did pretty well. So that's a good place for him. But we're gonna give Hans a 9.5, and move on to Tony, which has my favorite of the lower tier Z captains. So he's got Mega Aggron, Starmie, Necrozma, Florges, Hawlucha, Landorus I as his high tier Z captain, and Zoroark as his low tier, which I think is going to just wreck everybody. That's going to be a big deal to deal with this season. Oricorio, which I'm not really sure what that can do. Lanoon, which I would have said the same thing if not for new Tony in the Alt League, showing everyone what it can do. Manectric and Abomasnow, which I don't like. I would say really other than potentially Oricorio and Abomasnow. This is a pretty solid draft, and I think he has the best low tier Z captain. What do you guys think on this one?
I really like generally a lot of this team. I think Mega Aggron Florges is a really, really good core, and I think Mega Aggron needs that kind of cleric to help support it. He's also got a lot of stealth rock setters, which is nice. Actually, I realized one of the only criticisms I had of Hans' team is he actually didn't have a lot of stealth rock setters, and going back to that one. But for Tony, he actually has a lot of options for that, and some of the high tier options. Well, I guess just Landawai, Necrozma, Mega Aggron. Mega Aggron reliably does that. And I really like a lot of his offense, and the low tier stuff's going to be interesting. Because I think Manectric, Lanoon, Abomasnow, they could all be pretty good. I actually think Abomasnow could be nice just because offensive ice types in this format are really, really good. And I don't think anyone's tried out Abomasnow, but maybe potentially it could be nice. I guess the only big criticism I have of this team is I think Starmie, Necrozma, this hyping is a bit redundant. Maybe you could have gone with a different like spinner or a different like psychic type or like different tier 1. I feel like there may have been a few other better options. I don't think that'll be like a big thing, but I feel like I had 2 psychic types in season 1. It wasn't a big deal, but it is kind of that one common weakness that you'll have every time you try to bring both of them in the same matchup. But I don't think that'll be a big deal. I mean, I really like his offense overall.
I think it'll be interesting. I think Halucha is an interesting Pokemon. It's kind of frail, but it also has like really good setup opportunities. And I mean, I guess one job is to set up basically, and it'll be interesting how he can play around that and get a lot of wins with that, because it's a very threatening Pokemon to deal with if it gets into the right position to win a game.
Yeah, I definitely love this draft's offense mostly. I think that's the biggest part of it. I think Abomasnow is going to be very interesting to see whenever he does bring it, if he does bring it. See just what it does. I think if you send it on the right Pokemon, you can definitely get off a ton of damage on something with like a Specs Blizzard in the snow or something. But yeah, I think some of them are very interesting. I want to see how they do, like Oricorio, Abomasnow, like I said.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what Oricorio can do, or what his intention was with that. That one's probably the most questionable one to me. But other than that, I really like the team overall. I do think that despite having Mega Aggron and Florges on it, I think it does lean a little bit more towards the offensive side. So he's going to be kind of forced to bring the same walls pretty frequently if he wants to do that. But that being said, I still like the team. I'm going to go ahead and give him an 8.
I'm gonna go with a 7.5 because I don't feel like any aspect of his team does anything really that special. He's got like a pretty solid defensive core. He's got decent offense. But it doesn't have the same flexibility that someone like Frank's has. So because that team in particular has a lot of coverage and a lot of different tools and stuff like that. But I think this particular draft is pretty one-dimensional in terms of the offense it has, so it'll be interesting to see how he uses it.
I'll go ahead and give it an 8.
Yep. I'd go 7.5 as well, because I do like his low tier picks, but they're also one of the teams where I could easily see them flopping, and if that does happen, I think he's going to be in that situation where he brings to the top tiers all the time, and that might limit him. But I do think it's a really solid draft. I'm curious to see how it goes about using it.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to Chabin's team. And he's got Jirachi, Manaphy as a Z captain, Mega Altaria, Mamoswine, Jolteon, Lucario, Virizion, Weezing, Liepard, Salazzle, and Honchkrow. Again, Chabin almost always drafts really well, and I think this is really no exception. I really like Mega Altaria. I wasn't able to use it super well when I had it, but I think it's still one of the best Megas in League format. Jirachi and Manaphy are both also really good. The only thing that I'm kind of iffy on is I would have really liked to see maybe Lucario as his lower tier Z holder, or even Honchkrow maybe. I just don't see Virizion being as effective as a Z holder as either of those. What do you guys think on this one?
I really like this team. It's kind of funny. Some of the stuff he drafted looks pretty similar to what I had last season, like Jirachi, Mega Altaria, Fighting Steel type, and Offensive Water type, but I guess a bit of a stretch. So I got like it overall. I think he's got a lot of good picks. And yeah, Mega Altaria, I had it last season. It's good, but although after using it, I wouldn't say it's one of the best in the format because although it can do a lot, it's actually surprisingly predictable once you see like one move mix. Like once you see like Hyper Voice, you know it's special. Or like once you see like, I don't know, Heal Bell, you know it's gonna be like a bulky set. And it's very easy to put Altaria in that like bulky set every week because I don't know. I feel like a lot of people have enough fairy checks where it needs the coverage and it can't really run all the moves at once. I love Jirachi though, and Manaphy as well. He's both of those, and they're both really, really good. Same thing with Mamoswine. Like, honestly, a lot of his high tier offense is super good. Just the bulk overall is not really there at all. I mean, his only really walls is going to be like Wheezing, and like then if he has to run Altaria bulky a lot, then it's not going to be able to be effective Dragon Dance Sweeper. I feel like he's going to have to take a lot of his offense and force it into bulky rolls, or have to roll offensive every single week, and I feel like that's going to limit him unless he's willing to play offense every single week. And I feel like what worked out with him, especially in last season, is that he had like the good bulk in certain matchups to fall back on. So I'm not sure how it's going to be this season with this team.
Yeah, sometimes it'll be interesting to see like teams like this go balls to the wall and just like hit everything really hard. It's kind of, these are like really fun matches with teams like these, and hopefully it'll be an interesting team to watch. I also really like Mamoswine. I think Mamoswine is ridiculous. Its attack stat is really, really good, and its like offensive typing is incredibly hard to deal with just because ice is really hard, does a lot, and ground is, as I mentioned earlier, is also really, really solid. So he's gonna get a lot of mileage out of that thing, and I miss it. I miss Mamoswine.
Yeah, I definitely think he's gonna have to run like hyper offense. Maybe not every week, but like near it. That might not be a problem. He might be able to do it well, but I could see it becoming a problem for him, and him maybe losing games just because he can't break through some of the more bulky teams in the league.
In terms of like dealing with bulky teams, I think he'll be fine. I think Manaphy is a really good Pokemon for that, and I think he'll be able to work around it. That's just my opinion.
Okay, so what do you guys want to give Chabin? I think I'm going to give him probably a 7.5.
I'm gonna go with an 8.5 actually. I think it's a really solid draft. Particularly, I just really like these pure offensive kind of drafts. I actually don't think bulk is actually as necessary as you need it to be, as long as you can play it right. So I think this draft has a lot of tools to do that, and it'll be fun to watch.
I'll go 7.5 because I mean I agree to some extent. Like you don't really need to have like bulk all the time, but I feel like the issue is he's gonna have like something like Jirachi, which is really good offensively, and then it's gonna be like Spadef Jirachi with Wish Protect every week, and it's gonna be like or a Stealth Rocker every week. Actually, I think it's only 2 Stealth Jirachi Mamoswine anyways, which might limit him. Which means one of them is gonna have to run rocks, which is gonna limit and it's just I feel like he's gonna have to run maybe like a rest defensive Manaphy every week or defensive Mega Altaria, and that might like sort of hinder his options. Like I really like what he has, but yeah, I'll just go 7.5. I think I wish he had like maybe like 1 or 2 more designated walls. I think that would help out his team overall.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 7 just because I feel like his options are a little bit too limited for a better rating than that. I think it's decent overall though.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to Dennis. He's got Landorus T as one of his Z captains, Rotom Wash, Mega Medicham, Gengar, Hydreigon, Klefki, Darmanitan, Granbull, Skuntank, Jinx, and Lilligant. I think this is a really good offensive team. He doesn't have a whole lot of defensive options, which I think kind of hinders it a little bit, but he may be able to win before that really becomes a problem. So I really like Landorus T as a Z captain, and I think Jinx is a pretty good Z captain as well. I would have liked to see maybe, I think Darmanitan could have been a little bit better, but overall I think he has some pretty solid drafts. and I'm really interested to see Mega Metacham come into play. I know Christian picked it up maybe last season or one of the seasons before that, but it didn't see a whole lot of activity, in my opinion. Nothing major to make it stand out. So I'd be interested to see if he can really use that well. What do you guys think on this one?
I think.
Wait.
Yeah, you can go.
Okay.
Should I? Okay.
Basically, I think this team is like some form of that dirty blunder team that used like Lando T, Rotomosh, and Mega Metacham to like pivot into it a lot and then just hit a bunch of things really hard and made it really hard to deal with the Mega Metacham. And I think it'll be really neat to see how he uses this like form of core, like the Voltron core, to supply a lot of those wall breakers like the Hydreigon, like the Mega Metacham, and like the Gengar to some extent. And I think it's a really solid offensive team, and I really like both of the Z captains. I think Jinx has actually a lot of potential with its utility Z moves and also its offensive ice typing Z move.
Yeah, I think he just took all the threats he could find, and then took Volturn, and then put them all in one team. Then threw a Klefki on there for good measure. Honestly, I think this team is pretty disgusting. I think people are saying the Cons is like the team that's going to be most difficult to prep for. I think this is the team that's going to be like stupidly hard to prep for, because Lands team Rotom Wash and X Klefki too. That's a pretty solid like defensive core that can like help keep initiative and help like they can switch into a passive and they can get out of there and keep momentum on his side. But then he paired that up with like a bunch of really good breakers like Metacham, which is Christian used actually really well, and I think Metacham's super good. So excited to see how he uses that. Then also Gengar, which I think is good for tier 2, Hydreigon, Darm, which is another Volturn thing. I mean, I guess it has the same sort of issue as Chaven's team, where like I guess he doesn't have like too many reliable walls, but I feel like the walls or pivots he does have can help get, like with Volturn, can help get him into his wall breakers and keep the offense going. And I think that's going to be very difficult for a lot of teams to deal with.
So what do you guys want to give his team?
I'm gonna go with a 9.5. I definitely think it's up there. Like the offensive presence he like generates from the Volturn momentum is gonna be like really good. And also, as one of his wall breakers, Hydreigon also has access to that U-turn, so it also has like a little bit of an added benefit. And I also don't think a lot of his tier 5s and stuff like that are lacking. So I don't really see a weak point in this draft, and so I think it's just generally solid.
I'm gonna go 7.5. Mainly because I think it has the same issue as Chaven's team, but also it only has, I think, one defogger. So I think that could end up being an issue, but maybe not.
It has Hydreigon and Skuntank are both.
Hydreigon doesn't get
gets
defog.
Wait, Hydreigon
Yeah,
doesn't
no, it doesn't.
Wait, I used this last season. I didn't have. Oh my god, I'm dumb.
Yeah, but you
That's
kept on the
rude.
bench all season though.
That's true. That's why it was named unbenched in the final.
Yeah, I'll go 8 as well. I like the offense. I guess compared to like Chaven's team, which is kind of similar. I like how this team is a bit more like this Volturn to pair up. I think he's got like really good pivots. Like not like Rotom Wash is not going to last the whole game as a wall, but it's going to get in there, take a hit, full switch out. He's going to get a free shoot into Metacham, and then like someone's going to have to like pick something on their team to just like sack because they're not going to have to switch into it. Or he'll go into Hydreigon, he'll go into Gengar, and yeah, it's going to be really difficult to deal with.
Okay, I'm gonna give him an 8. So I would say, what do you guys think the average is on that one? Maybe a 8.5.
I think so, like 8 or 8.5.
Okay, do 8.5 on that one. And next up we have Kevin, and he's got Xurkitree, Celesteela, Mew, which is potentially one of the best and obviously most versatile, but potentially one of the best high tier captains. Mega Tyranitar, which I don't know if we've seen that one before. Azumarill, Roserade, Emboar, Dodrio as a low tier captain. Smeargle, Piloswine, and Yanmega. I really like a lot of these picks. I don't really care for Smeargle a whole lot. I used it season 1, and it's not as good as it seems to be on paper. It's just kind of hard to use it sometimes. I mean, obviously you're going to get probably webs and spore, so that's kind of predictable. But it's harder to use than you think it would be. Other than that, I really like most of his picks. I really like Mew as a tier 1 Z captain holder. I think that's setting him up to do some pretty cool things with that. And Xurkitree is awesome as well. Overall, I think this is a kind of middle of the road. Nothing super amazing, but nothing bad. Pick overall. What do you guys think on this one?
I like it, but I also agree with the fact that it's kind of middle of the road. I think my biggest problem with this is the low tier Z captain. I think Roserade has a lot of more potential than Dodrio does. Also, Yanmega even better than Dodrio, I think. But I think Roserade could have definitely benefited from being a Z captain for sure, with like things like Z sleep powder to increase speed and whatnot. But yeah, I think it's decent.
I also wish he honestly didn't pick up Mew, because then he could put like Z on like the Xurkitree or something like, or like one of the other Pokemon. I also think like his like Azumarill would have also been a good option with the Z belly drum and stuff like that. But overall, I still do think these picks are really good, and he was lucky to pick up a Mew in the 3rd round. I was actually really surprised by that, especially since he added the Z stones. One thing I also really like is the amount of entry hazards he has, especially with this Miracle. He has spikes from Roserade, rocks from Pilliswine, and then he has whatever else he wants. Also, this Miracle if he wants to bring that. Yeah.
This is probably like one of my favorite teams. Like, this is a team I love to use, although I do think it does have some problems. I think the fact that he has no other hazard removal outside of Mew, like I don't really count Smeargle, means it might be forced into that stall breaker defog kind of role a bit much, which does limit it because I think you use super versatile, and you want to be able to use them that way where you can change up week by week. And I just think Smeargle does okay in tier 5 because you still have to like prepare for like sticky webs, which means everyone who plays Kevin probably has to bring like hazard removal every week. So if that 1 week they bring webs, Smeargle, and you don't bring your spinner or defogger, that's gonna really mess things up. And outside of that, like I like this team. Like I like a lot of his, like his Firewater, Grass, Mega Tyranitar is pretty cool. I wish he picked up Stoutland low tier. That would be cool. And Celesteela is also really nice. I used that in another league, and it's super cool. And I'm also really excited that someone finally picked up Yanmega because I think that could be really cool. And I want Kevin to run Endure Weakness Policy with Speed Boost and sweep someone.
I think Yanmega is so good. It's very powerful, very powerful. It has really good offenses, and it's also got Speed Boost, and even Tinted Lens is like a really nice ability. Also, if you don't want to run the Speed Boost set.
So I'm gonna give I think I'm gonna give Kevin a 7.5.
I'll give him an 8.
No, I'm gonna go with an 8 as well.
I'm gonna also go with an 8. I feel like I've given an 8 to every single team.
Well, they're all, for the most part, pretty solid this season, other than maybe Suko's.
Rip.
I think so far everyone we've reviewed has had a pretty good team. So next up we have Joe. He has Gothitelle, Dugtrio, Nihilego as his tier 1 captain, Donphan, Alolan Persian as his low tier captain, Mega Alakazam, Magnezone, Superior, Pyroar, Yukumuku, and Gumshoes. I have no idea what those last two are going to do. I'm not really familiar with them. Overall, this is I'm kind of iffy on this team, to be honest. Nothing super awesome, but nothing bad, really. Or nothing too bad. Again, I would say this is probably the most middle of the road team that I've seen so far. I do really like the Mega Alakazam though, and I think with Gothitelle now having Shadow Tag, I think he's gonna potentially take some people out pretty easily with that. But that's my thoughts. What do you guys think on this one?
This team looks like hilariously fun to use with double trappers, and then just like a really fast Pokemon to clean up whatever's left. I think that'll be a really interesting way to play. Like removing things for Superior also, and we'll maybe be able to pick up a lot of wins by trapping that he plays his team really properly. And it just looks like fun to use, and he's got a lot of tools like with the Z parting shot from the Alolan Persian to heal something to full. He's got a lot of different things he can play with, and it'll be fun to watch.
Now he has three trappers, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, he has Magnezone too. 3 trappers. That's ridiculous. That's so fun.
Yeah, so I think he just picked every trapper he could find for this one.
Yeah, but Magnezone's not really a Pokemon. It's more like just a thing you put on your team to just chill there.
Thanks, Hans.
Yeah, I got Brawl 1 game, and people said it was a good pick.
But
So,
Yeah, not like this is the best team or anything, but I fucking love this team. It looks, again, like so fun to use, and I love his Z captain, especially low inversion. You can tell he loves that thing, but I'm sure it will do a good job with Z parting shot and whatnot.
I like Pyukumuku. I think Pyukumuku is hilarious. It'll be super fun to watch that. And also like gumshoes out there. Will be. I don't think we'll get used too much, but who knows? You know.
Oh, it is the best line I get used every week.
Pyukumuku!
so I think I'm gonna give Joe probably a 1.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with 13.
I'm gonna go with 25 just because of the Magnezone edition.
So I
I'm
think
gonna
that
give 5 out of 7.
that balances us out to about an 8.
Yep, I really
Actually-
love the Pyukumuku.
Pyukumuku! One other thing I want to say about his team, 'cause I actually didn't really say anything serious. He has like no physical offense whatsoever. Like literally his physical offense is Dougie, and that's kind of like it means you have I don't know, like a Blissey on your team or something like that. It's gonna sit in front of like every single thing. Like just like, go up and down the list and like look at what Blissey does to his team, and that's gonna be an issue probably.
Hey, you forgot the Lord
Just grab the
Gumshoes
Magnezone.
himself.
Oh, true. Never mind. So with that in mind, I think I give Joe a perfect 420 out of 69. I give him a 7.
Pyukumuku.
I'm gonna give Joe a 6.5.
I'll give him a 7 as well.
All right, Brian, it's all on you now. You're gonna side
No,
Joe's
I'm
fate.
being serious. I'm gonna go with 7. Yeah.
Okay, Joe gets a 7. Barely squeaks by with a 7.
Pyukumuku.
And we'll move on to Ryan. He's got a lot of regenerators going on here. Slowking, Amoonguss, Mega Scizor, Tornadus T, Nidoqueen, Entei, Sneasel, Pelipper, Tyrantrum, Omastar, and Comfy. I don't know what Comfy's going to do, but it looks like he's got a rain team going on, and I think that's going to be really cool to see. What do you guys think on this one?
I really don't get why you picked the Moongus over Tangrowth. Other than that, I do like this team. I think the lower rain edition near the end with Omastar could be definitely really cool. I think it can be a decent range sweeper, definitely underrated. Comfy, don't think it's going to do much, but I think the rest of his team is pretty good.
Yeah, so the secret is that me and Ryan had dealings under the table, and I told him I wouldn't take Mega Scizor from him if he let me have Tangrowth. So that's what happened, and that's why he took Amoonguss over Tangrowth. Yeah, I also don't know. I just think that Regenerator core is pretty disgusting. You can just keep switching between those two, and they won't take any damage. And then you'll have one of your Pokemon asleep, and then you'll just be like, I don't know. It's really annoying just to constantly deal with those guys healing. And the Tornadus T also adds a lot to that. It's got really good coverage also from my experience of using it in the past, which will be augmented by the Z move. And it's just a really solid core to deal with. And then the rest of his team isn't really slacking either, and it'll be interesting to see how he uses Comfy. I think that's also a really interesting Pokemon.
Tornadus T is one of the best Z holders that you could pick. Supersonic Sky Strike's already going to be doing a lot, but it gets a shitload of coverage moves that a lot of them are like inaccurate. Focus Blast, Heat Wave, that can not only be made stronger but not miss. And I think that's going to be really, really good for him. I think definitely huge offensive presence with that Z Crystal ability.
I also really like the late Rain core he picked up with Pelipper and Omastar. That'll be really powerful and just a pain to deal with, because Omastar is one of the best rain abusers. It's got really high special attack and decent defenses, so it can just fire off really powerful Hydro Pumps or Scalds if you don't want to miss the rain, and it's just really hard to switch into.
Yeah, this is my favorite team overall. I feel like he drafted the perfect sort of weather team, where obviously his team with like Torn T, Scizor, Amoonguss, like Pelipper. Like you can run with Rain, it could be really good, but he doesn't have to do that. Like he can bring no Rain, then bring Entei, and that could be really nice. I think Omastar also being a Swiss Swim user is pretty cool. I just think overall his team has so many good value picks. Like Nidoqueen's amazing, and so is Sneasel, honestly, in tier 4. It's super fast, and its stabs are really annoying to switch into. And I think Comfey is like kind of like not great, but like compared to all the other fairies, which are like tier 1, tier 2, usually Comfey is a pretty good value pick. So at first when he drafted like Slowking round 1, I was iffy, but this ended up overall being like probably one of, if not my favorite team. I really like what he has going. I think it's going to be really good.
Okay, what do you guys give him on a score?
8.5. My go-to score, I say.
No 9.
Yeah, I'm going to go 9.
I'm going to give him a 9 as well. I think this is going to be a hard team to beat. And next up, we have Josh, and he's got Mega Pinsir, Latios, Cobalion, Volcarona, Hippowdon, Mimikyu, Alolan Muck, Komala, Magneton, Quagsire, and Shiftry. I think this is another one of those teams where just about everything is going to be viable and be able to be brought. Maybe not Shiftry, but again, it does have its uses. Not the best, but it does have some uses there. And then he's got Volcarona and Mimikyu as Z holders. I don't know if I'd... I kind of think Latios might be a better Z holder, but I don't think it's Volcarona's bad or anything like that. But overall, I think this is a really solid draft. Again, one of the better ones this season.
I like the theory of Volcarona as the Z holder. It's traditionally used in OU a lot also, and it's become a lot more prevalent because of the Z stones. It's just one of those setup sweepers that gets a lot of mileage out of having a Z move. Wow, I'm using mileage a lot today. But it gets a lot of use out of the Z move because it can break through the things that, like, the breaking points that would normally be able to shut it down. That those are the things you could power through with the Z move, and that'll really help it get through a lot of teams that it normally wouldn't be able to get through without the Z move.
Yeah, Jack and Jarrett, what do you guys think on this one?
And just Cobalion. That's all I have to say.
I didn't really realize how like solid this team was until I did a few like practice matches with it, and then like actually looking it through his options, I really like what he's got going. I think he's built around Mega Pinsir pretty well, with Latios being a really nice pairing, and Magneton, which is like slightly lower tiered than Magnezone, but it does the exact same thing, and it forces your opponent to run like Shed Shell or like not bring a Steel type, which can be really nice. Cobalion is super good. See if you can beat my record of kills, but I think like it's pretty versatile. It's got cool options. There's like a stealth proc setter, which is nice. Hippo, even without like a sand abuser, is just like a really solid physical wall, which is cool. And yeah, like I also like Alolan Muck. Like, I really like all of his picks, and I think it is gonna be one of those teams where he can bring every single option every week, which is gonna be really nice. And also, I think his 2 Z holders, especially Mimikyu with Z Splash, is just super dangerous because all it needs is that one free turn, and at +3, it can just run through some teams, especially when they're... So I think this is going to be a very solid team overall.
Yeah, I'm going to give... go ahead, Jarrett.
Just being real about this this time. I think this is a great team. I think my favorite pick overall is probably Alolan Muck, to be honest, just because I think it's such a great value pick in being in tier 4. It's got really good special bulk. It's got great stab. It's I don't know. I just really like it. I think it's great. I think his overall team is great. Mega Pinsir, obviously a monster. He's got good walls and everything. I think he's got everything a good team just needs.
So I'm gonna give Josh the second 9.5 of the night. What do you guys think on this one?
I'd give him a 9. Like, I think, yeah, like overall, I guess this is just like a really solid team. I guess like maybe if he had like one thing faster than base 110 would be kind of nice, because like Latios is fast, but I feel like if you have like one Pokemon your opponent's team is like base like 125, and then attack boosting nature without any problem, so they might have to like forcibly bring a Scarfer in some matchups. But that'd be like the only like nitpick I have of this team. Overall, like 9 out of 10, really solid.
Yeah, I'll go 9 as well. It's a great team, super solid. Nothing too special, but I think it's just overall just good.
I think the team has a little bit of a rocks weakness, especially with the Volcarona and the Mega Pinsir, but I mean, he also has the Latias and the Komala to clear with those hazards, and hopefully that shouldn't be too much of a problem with him, but definitely being able to support those things is going to be important for him, so I'm going to go with 8.5.
Okay, so it looks like he's getting a 9. And last up, we have Kane. He's got Tapu Fini, he's got Latios as one of his Z captains, Ferrothorn, Arcanine, Gliscor, Mega Pidgeot, which is the first time that's been used, so I'm excited to see that. Mienshao, Heliolisk as his lower tier holder, Drapion, Dusknoir, and Golurk. Overall, I think this is a pretty solid team. I would say this is more upper middle of the road. Got a lot of bulk on this team, but it does have some decent offense as well. But nothing really stands out too much here to me. What do you guys think on this one?
I mean, I'd say like nothing stands out, but honestly, that's like the thing I like about this team. It's like it's probably the team with the best overall synergy. Like Tapu Fini, Latios, Ferrothorn, Arcanine, like those 4 just synergize so remarkably well. Like they cover each other's weaknesses really well, and that's gonna be just a break. So like there's nothing super flashy about it, but it all does its job. And like Mega Pidgeot, I think is going to be super cool. I think in tier 3, it's just Flying Stab is really nice, and it's going to be very spammable. And like he's got like good Volt Turn, also with like Mienshao, Heliolisk, Drapion's a really good tier 4 pick, and I also like this tier 5 picks. Both. I like this kind of style of draft where almost every single thing on the team, actually not even almost every single thing on the team, I think is going to have its use in certain matchups. And he's gonna have a lot of options. It's not super top heavy. I like his low tier picks, and everything in the middle also is very solid.
I think my only problem with this team is Golurk. I'm just not quite sure why he added it when he has Dusknoir and then Mike Gliscor. I think he could have picked up something better, but other than that, I think it's a super solid team. Bulky, but it's also got pretty good wall breakers and spammable moves with Pidgeot and Heliolisk. I think Heliolisk is a monster, especially as a Z holder. Gives it more potential to be good. I think that thing's gonna. I mean, it's at the top of the leaderboard in the alt league. I think it could possibly do the same thing here.
Okay. What do you guys want to give him on a ranking?
I'm going to go with a 9.
I'd go 8.5. I think for his first draft, I think some people their first draft is kind of like a little bit of question mark. I think for his first draft in this kind of league, it was really, really solid. So 8.5.
Yeah, I agree. I'll still give him an 8.5. Definitely for his first draft, it's definitely really solid. So yeah, 8.5.
Okay, I'm gonna also do 8.5. And that is our Season 5 draft video. Any predictions, or do we want to do the bold predictions that we did, or do we want to save that for another video?
It's already been like more than an hour long, so that's probably another video.
Yeah, it's a little old.
Yeah, save it.
Okay, we'll go ahead and end it here, and we will see you guys next time with our next video.
Cool.
Cool.